Imagine a civilization that ruled everything from the misty highlands of Britain to the deserts of Egypt. Its legions crushed kings and empires, its roads stretched for thousands of miles, aqueducts carried water to cities that dazzled the world, and Roman law became the very foundation of European justice. This was not just a state, it was the superpower. For centuries, it had seemed eternal, invincible, destined to rule forever. And yet, within a single lifetime, it collapsed. Not because of one epic battle or an unstoppable horde at the gates, but because of something far more human: decay, betrayal, and weakness from within. This is the story of the last days of the Western Roman Empire. The 5th century, the Western Roman Empire is living through its final decades. Once the richest power of the Mediterranean, it is now drained by endless wars and political turmoil. Provinces are rebelling, enemies are pressing on the borders, and the treasury is empty. Taxes became unbearable. Small farmers abandoned their land and fled from tax collectors, preferring poverty to the crushing demands of the state. Great cities that once bustled with trade and culture grew silent. Markets emptied, amphitheaters fell quiet, shops closed. And then came the fatal blow. The empire lost its most vital provinces. Britain had been abandoned decades earlier. Gaul and Spain were swallowed by barbarian kingdoms, and when the Vandals captured North Africa, Rome's breadbasket, the heart of the empire itself began to starve. The Roman army, once the pride of the empire, was no longer Roman. The famous legions had withered away. What remained was a patchwork of foreign mercenaries: Germans, Goths, Huns, soldiers who fought only for gold and who often turned their swords against the empire when pay ran out. The empire that once held the world in awe now looked like a shadow of its former self. Politics were no less chaotic. In just 50 years, more than 10 emperors had risen and fallen. Some were assassinated, some were overthrown, a few were simply forgotten. Most of them were powerless puppets, manipulated by generals and court officials. The throne of Rome, once the seat of Augustus and Marcus Aurelius, had become little more than a stage prop. In 475 AD, a boy was placed upon that stage: Romulus Augustulus. He was only 15. His very name seemed to carry the weight of history. Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome, and Augustus, the emperor's first ruler. And yet, by cruel irony, this teenager became the last emperor of the West. The true ruler was his father, Orestes, a seasoned general who controlled all affairs of state. The boy emperor was merely a face for ceremonies, a hollow reminder of a power that no longer existed. Meanwhile, danger was gathering outside Rome's walls. Orestes had promised his Germanic and Gothic allies land in Italy as a reward for their service, but when the moment came to keep that promise, he refused. That refusal proved to be a fatal mistake. The betrayed warriors turned against him. Rising in anger, they united under a single leader: Odoacer. Odoacer was no ordinary chieftain. He was a towering figure, a warrior in furs and iron, both respected and feared by his men. His authority bound together thousands of disillusioned soldiers, and with them, he marched not against Rome's enemies abroad, but against Rome itself. The march was swift. The goal was clear. They were heading straight for the heart of the empire. 476, the final year. Orestes gathered what forces he could to confront the rebels, but his army was a pale shadow of Rome's past might. Exhausted, unpaid, and disloyal, his soldiers broke under Odoacer's onslaught. The battle ended quickly. Orestes was captured and executed. The boy emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was left utterly defenseless. Then came the moment that symbolized the end of an age. Odoacer entered Rome. He could have sacked the city as so many had done before him. He could have slaughtered the emperor to mark his triumph. But instead, he chose something colder. He forced Romulus to abdicate. The young emperor, small and frightened, removed his crown and handed it to the barbarian. With that gesture, over 1,000 years of Roman rule came to a close. Yet in the end, it was not a grand tragedy, but almost a farce. Romulus Augustulus was not executed, he was not tortured or paraded in chains.
Instead, he was quietly sent into exile in Campania. He lived out his life in obscurity, forgotten, a reminder of how meaningless the imperial title had become. Odoacer declared himself King of Italy. Though he acknowledged the distant Eastern Emperor in Constantinople, he ruled independently. To make the end official, he sent the imperial regalia, the crown, the scepter, the symbols of power, to Emperor Zeno. Zeno accepted them, fully aware of what it meant. The Western Roman Empire was gone. Rome would no longer be ruled by Caesars, but by barbarian kings. History is nothing if not ironic. The first king of Rome was Romulus, the first emperor was Augustus, and the last emperor carried both names, Romulus Augustulus. It was as if destiny itself had written the closing line. Rome had fallen, but Rome's shadow was long. Roman law shaped the foundations of European justice. Latin became the language of the church, of science, of medicine. Roman roads, aqueducts, and monuments still stand, reminders of a vanished greatness. And the very concept of empire, the dream of ruling the known world, lived on for 1,000 years in Europe's imagination. The fall of 476 was not just the death of a state, it was a turning point in history. The end of antiquity, the beginning of the Middle Ages. This was WowKnows. If you love stories that shaped the world, don't forget to subscribe, because history is never just in the past.